everybody, it is me from The Budget Life. Today I wanted to go over my fiance's and my little debt-free journey. So my fiance and I met back in February of 2017, and when we met we both had a good amount of debt. I remember we had been seeing each other maybe 3 weeks at one point, and my now fiance turned to me and was like, "Hey, I've never been good about talking about finances, and it's something I want to get better at, but I want to be upfront and honest with you, and I have about $9,000 in debt." And I just looked at him and was like, "Well, you have less than I do, but we can work on that." So we both had some debt we were working through. When we met, I had just recently moved out of a bad living situation, or an old living situation. I guess it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best for me. So I had just moved back in with I was staying with my mom temporarily. Let's go with that. So I had this much debt. I was only making $1,500 a year. I own my own business. So a majority of this debt is from the loan I had taken out to start my business. I had a little bit in credit card debt as well, just because when I started my business, it took me a while to adjust my budget to my spending and really hone in my budget. Because remember, I only make $1,250 a month. And so in my previous living situation, over half of my income would go directly to my rent. I was paying, I think, $600 a month in rent, and then I think I had to do like 100 and something and 115 utilities, and then I literally had a budget for myself of maybe $125 for groceries for the month. And then I allowed myself like $15 of fun money, and the rest I would just try to throw out my debt. And my minimum loan payment was like $280. My minimum credit card payment was like $95 or something like that. And or maybe it was $100, I don't remember. But because my credit card had a higher interest rate, I was trying to pay that one down a little bit faster, even just like $20, $30 extra a month, whatever I could. And then right after we met, or the previous year, because of my business, my income tax was a little higher than I anticipated, so I did owe the IRS a little bit of money, and I was slowly paying that off. And my fiance, he had a little bit of credit card debt, and he had some student loans that he had for way too long, and he was just trying to get those paid down, or had just recently started paying those off right before we met. So basically when we met, we had about $22,000 in debt. We might have had a little bit more, but this is a good estimate. So again, I was staying at my mom. I was trying to hustle a lot to get this down. So one of the things I did is I picked up a side gig as a barista, to help my income a lot. And I basically had them withhold, I think $75 to $100 every paycheck for my taxes. That way, and then I was still making monthly payments. So that way, every time when tax season came around, back in beginning of this year, I wouldn't have to owe as much. And then all of my tips, I put, I think I was averaging about $60 in tips a day. So I would keep maybe $10 of that and keep that in my wallet. The rest I would put in the safe, and then once a month I would empty out the safe and put everything into everything else towards my loan payment and my credit card payment as much as I could. And so at least for the first few months I was living with my mom, so that was pretty easy. And then in July we ended up moving in together, which is kind of fast, and we knew that, but it is what it is. We're engaged, we're getting married next month, so it's all good. But yeah, so between February of when we met to July, I think I had maybe thrown an extra couple $100 at that a month. But moving in together, even the place we moved into is so much cheaper than my last place that I was able to have like an extra $200 or $300 every month, based off my previous budgeting lifestyle, to throw at my debt. And I was still working part-time as a barista, and I just did that all summer. So I was bringing in about, because I was only baristaing a couple days a week, I think I was doing it, I did it on my days off from the shop, so I was still working 7 days a week, and I was doing it about 2 days a week, so I was bringing in an extra $350 a month in tips, and then a little bit from the paycheck, but not by much. So that boosted up my monthly income to around 1600, no, 16, I'm just going to say it was about 1700, so that was great, because that was like an extra $800 a month for me that I was able to throw at my debt after all of my main expenses happened. And my fiance, he was making about $1,600 a month at this point, so, and we weren't really being frugal, we weren't really budgeting closely, we hadn't combined our finances. When we moved in together, we did open one joint checking account for things like groceries and things like doing our rent check out of. So I think we both put in like $700 a month into that account, and everything else was kind of on our own. That way we had our rent and groceries and like utilities covered, and so that's basically what we did for quite a while. And then we got engaged in November of 2017, and that's when we really started like, okay, let's look at our budgeting. Let's look at all this and see what we can do. Because right now, as of today, we only owe about $1,023. So we did a lot in the past, 17 months? 16, 17 months? Yeah, that's a lot of money to pay off. It really is. So one of the things that happened is we kind of started really kind of looking at it in January. After my business had finished doing its taxes, it was great because I had completely paid this off with my federal withholding. This had gone down to about 2,000 something. My loan was now down to about 6,000, maybe a little bit less. So around February of this year, we kind of really started listening to some budgeting podcasts and watching budgeting YouTube videos, and found Dave Ramsey and a few other things, and we're just like, oh, well, let's really look down and set up our finances and figure out what we can do. And so that's when we really crunched the numbers, and I was like, I'm pretty sure we can do our groceries on like $250 a month. We'll start it at $300 just to see how we can do it. And so that's what we really did. So at this point, back in February, our income was, I was making $1,250, and my fiance was making $1,600 a month. So we were making $2,850. Yeah. So that's what we were doing. And our like minimum, we were living like pretty minimal lifestyle. So of that, only about $1,300 a month was our like rent, our food, our utilities. We dropped down his cell phone plan. We found a bunch of like Netflix and other memberships. He canceled his Amazon Prime account because I have mine through my business, and I was like, if we need to order anything, we can just order it on my account and ship it to our apartment or my store, and we'll figure that stuff out. So this gave us about $1,550 a month we could apply to our loans. One thing that really did help us out a lot is I had some savings bonds that were a gift from my father and my mother when I was a little kid. They had matured, and I had never cashed them out because they had a decent interest rate. I think were gaining like 4 or 5% interest every couple months, or 4 or 5% interest annually which, I mean, compared to savings accounts and things now, that was a really good rate. It might have been even closer to 6%. And I was talking to my brother, and I was like, hey, my fiance and I, we were working on trying to get out of debt, and I have these, and I'm debating on whether or not I should cash them out or just plug along here, throw all this at it, and just have those when we're done as like, woohoo, we have like an emergency fund and things like that. My brother basically said to me was, if you look at the numbers and how much your interest rate is on your loan and your credit card and his credit cards and his loans, it doesn't matter that these are accruing interest, because you're getting into debt faster than this savings bond is accruing interest. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So this was like a Saturday, so on Monday, as soon as the bank was open, I went in, I cashed out all my savings bonds, and I basically wiped out the rest of my loan at this point. This was back in this was back in March. I wiped out the rest of my loan. I brought my credit card down from like 3,000 something to like 1,000 or like 900. And then we ordered our debts from like smallest to largest, which also happened to be the order of highest interest to lowest interest. So we were both doing like a debt snowball and a debt avalanche, because there's a couple different theories on how you should be paying your debt off, and we've just been throwing money at it ever since. And then in May, my fiance got a better paying job, so that increased our monthly take home by about $250, $300 a month. So that means we've been able to throw closer to $1,650 to $1,700 at our debt, and that's just an extra $150 every single month. And during this entire time, we would have been closer, because like 2 days after I finished paying off my credit card, we discovered that my fiance's mom had cancer, and he hadn't been home to see her in about a decade. So we bought a ticket for him to go to visit really quick, just because we weren't sure where she was at. And then during this time, we also had a trip that we had planned before we really had started our debt snowball process, because we had a wedding to go to out of state. So we would be completely debt free had it not been for those two things. So really, that one trip basically just set us back another month. Otherwise, we would have been debt free by the beginning of August. But still, we have paid off a lot in a pretty short period of time, making not a lot of money. Because like I said, this is my annual take home every year, and his annual take home, especially for that first 6 months of us working on paying our debt off, was, I think our combined take home was like $3,200 or $32,000 a year. And so now it's gone up a little bit, and we're working on steps to make it go bigger, because this year I've also sold some artwork, and that's helped increase our monthly income by a couple $100 here or there on average since I've started doing that. And then my fiance also picked up another side job that he's doing, so that's helping. But yeah, we're excited. We're looking to be debt free, I think, after our next paycheck, and then, which will be in like 5 or 6 days, which is crazy, because I've had, like, I started my business about almost 4 years ago now, and that small loan that I took out, it was only a $12,500 loan, but it was kicking my ass for 4 years, because I've only been making that much. But with our combined forces and just a lot of hard perseverance and really being focused, I was able to pay that loan off almost 2 full years early, at least 1.5 years early. My fiance, he's had his student loans for over a decade, and he's finally getting them out. They weren't very huge to begin with, but they're finally gonna be gone, and we're both really excited about that. we haven't used our credit cards since we paid them both off completely. And we paid them both off completely, I want to say, in May. And then we've been slowly taking away at those student loans, and I'm so excited for this to be completely gone, because we're getting married next month and we're cash flowing that, and we're doing a really cheap wedding. We're basically doing a step up from elopement. But yeah, that's our story so far. Obviously it'll keep coming, but I just wanted to let you guys know that it is possible, and it's hard work, but if you have a goal in mind and you really know what you want, you can make it happen. You can find, even if it's a couple extra bucks here and there, like even when it was like with my financial situation earlier, when it was just me putting money towards my loans, I was still throwing like an extra $50 or an extra $100 at it, even though I was making like nothing. And like, yeah, I was living a very minimalist lifestyle. I've never had online subscriptions. I've never done that. And so that was easy for me to cut out, but I know it's not for everybody, but yeah, there's a lot you can do. And there's a lot you can do in a small period of time. So anyway, that's my story so far. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something. I hope it was helpful. Like, subscribe, comment, do the stuff. I don't care. It'd be nice, but don't worry about it. I'm just doing this more for my own accountability and just to kind of put it out there, because being in debt is not easy. It can feel like it sometimes, but it's a lot easier when you have extra money that you can just use towards other things. So we're really excited about that. Anyway, have a good one.